But Kody did share with me that when Robin came into the family and he was experiencing this.
Hi, I'm Christine Brown-Woolley, author and narrator of Sister Wife. My book is coming out very soon, and I couldn't be more excited. But behind the anticipation and glossy pages lies a storm that few saw coming. It began not with a quiet announcement, but with a slam so loud one producer thought a ceiling fixture had fallen. But it wasn't the set collapsing, it was Kody. According to multiple sources close to production, he had just stormed into the kitchen gripping a printed draft of my upcoming memoir. The manuscript, still unfinished and definitely not meant for his eyes yet, had been leaked to him through what insiders are now calling a family back channel. And it was the words on page 47 that sent him into what one crew member later described as a red-faced, uncontrollable rage spiral. At the heart of his fury was a sentence that might just go down as the most explosive line in Sister Wives history. Polygamy, as I lived it, was built on lies. 11 words. That's all it took to detonate whatever illusion of narrative control Kody believed he still had. But insiders insist this wasn't just a reaction from a wounded ego. It was something deeper. This was about legacy, image, and the very foundation the Brown family had spent more than a decade marketing to the world as spiritual, functional, and sacred. My book, titled Sister Wife, is scheduled to be released in September, and ever since that leak, speculation has been wild about just how deep I'm willing to go, and what truths I'll finally bring to light. He didn't just yell, he exploded. Pacing the kitchen barefoot, hair disheveled, Kody reportedly shouted that I had crossed the line, slandered our lifestyle, and destroyed everything we built with TLC. According to one production assistant on set that day, he even accused me of playing directly into the hands of anti-polygamists. Cameras were allegedly turned off immediately, or so they thought. Some crew members, however, kept the audio rolling on hidden recorders. Not out of malice, but because what they were witnessing was so raw, so potentially volatile, they feared it could spiral into a legal nightmare. That's how far it went. And all over a single paragraph. I hadn't even made a formal announcement, just a casual behind-the-scenes clip posted to my fans. But that clip included a brief draft reading, and that's where everything started to unravel. And here's where it gets even more complicated. The outburst didn't happen behind closed doors. Robin was there. So was a stunned production assistant who had, just moments earlier, handed Kody a bowl of cereal. As Kody began screaming about how the family was being misrepresented, Robin reportedly tried to calm him down, suggesting that I was simply processing my truth. But that only threw fuel on the fire. Kody slammed the draft pages down onto the marble countertop and barked, "Her truth? She's making it sound like I was running a cult." One witness described the moment as a pot that had been boiling too long with the lid sealed tight, until it finally blew. And by then, it wasn't just about one sentence anymore. It was about the entire meaning behind it. Because that line, those 11 words, didn't just question the system. According to insiders who've read the full draft, the chapter draws a clear, unflinching connection between Kody's personal actions and the emotional unraveling of each and every wife in our family. It doesn't come off like a revenge book. It reads like a reckoning. But this dramatic explosion in the kitchen, that was just the beginning. Because while Kody was busy spiraling over what I'd written, the fans were about to find out exactly why I had every reason to write it in the first place. The camera crew followed Kody that day too. He didn't just yell and storm around the kitchen, he rushed straight home to Robin. And at the same time, a soft flicker was starting on the internet. One that was about to ignite into a 5-alarm fire.
To everything or whatever, I don't know. And so when he would come every third day, all of a sudden it was like this whole alter universe.
"This is her lying face," one commenter wrote, zooming in on a moment where Robin fidgets with her necklace and avoids eye contact. She knew. Fans aren't just angry, they're dissecting everything, down to body language. And now they're demanding to know if TLC actively buried the footage. Rumors are swirling that they did. According to one crew member who allegedly worked on post-production during Truly's labor episode, there were multiple scenes captured that night, including footage of Kody arriving at Robin's house and whispering to the camera crew, "Cut it here." One source even claims Kody was heard muttering that he didn't want a scandal while Christine is on the table. Let that sink in. He knew exactly how damning it looked, but instead of changing his actions, he told the cameras to look the other way. Whether the footage still exists is a mystery, but fans are convinced there's more to the story than whatever made it to air. And now that Christine is peeling back layers in her memoir, even unintentionally, those old wounds are being torn open, and they're bleeding. But this wasn't just about one betrayal during one pivotal moment. It's about a pattern, a long-standing one, of favoritism, emotional sleight of hand, and silent manipulations. Robin always seemed to appear during the most sensitive moments in the other wives' journeys. Not directly, but always there, lingering, watching. And now, that alleged kiss isn't just a moment in time. It's becoming a symbol of what Christine's book is trying to dismantle. Not just the physical absence while she was in labor, but the emotional abandonment that had already begun long before. The truth is, Kody wasn't leading a plural family anymore. He was choosing a future, and Christine was expected to stay quiet, smile through the pain, and carry the image. Until now. After those porch kiss rumors reignited online, things exploded behind the scenes. Insiders say by the end of that same week, Kody was already on the phone with lawyers, scrambling to stop the book from being released in its current form. He wanted it pulled, redacted, or at least heavily edited. One source close to the situation revealed that he called the memoir defamatory, damaging, and claimed it painted him as a heartless narcissist. But here's the kicker. Kody hadn't even read the final manuscript. All he had was a leaked early draft, passed to him through what some believe may have been a sympathetic relative, or someone inside Robin's circle. Yet even that incomplete version was enough to push him into full-blown panic mode. Allegedly, Kody demanded an emergency meeting with the publishing house. He wanted a full review of the book's content, reportedly insisting they either pull the chapter or prepare to be sued. But legal experts familiar with publishing law say that's not how this works. Christine is well within her rights to recount her personal experiences, as long as she's not making provably false claims. And here's where things got even messier for Kody. Christine had already received a substantial advance. At this stage in the production cycle, pulling or reprinting the book would cost the publisher tens of thousands of dollars in layout, printing, and marketing delays. Unless Kody could present undeniable proof that Christine had fabricated key events, the chances of a rewrite were slim to none. And Christine? She wasn't backing down. Friends close to her say she's fully prepared for the backlash. The threats, the statements, even legal intimidation. But the hold Kody once had on her? That grip is gone. One insider said that for years he used fear to control her, whispering warnings of broken families and spiritual exile. But now, she has love, she has freedom, and, most importantly, she has receipts. Still, that hasn't stopped Kody from attempting a counterattack. Sources say he's floated the idea of releasing a public video statement, maybe an open letter to fans, where he tells his side of the story. But production insiders worry that would backfire spectacularly. He still thinks people see him as the wounded husband, one crew member claimed, but that tide turned years ago. And if he tries to twist this into a PR move, especially with that kiss hanging over everything, it might only make things worse. Because here's the thing, the book is coming. The manuscript is locked. And if this is how Kody reacted to a leaked draft, insiders say he hasn't even seen the worst of it. Christine, for the first time in her adult life, is writing without fear, and she's not pulling punches. That quote that triggered him, the one about polygamy being built on lies, didn't just call out a belief system, it shattered the foundation of the entire show. It was a wrecking ball aimed straight at the myth the Brown family had spent over a decade propping up with cheerful birthday parties and contrived dinner scenes. When that sentence surfaced in the leaked pages, Kody reportedly lost all illusion that he could still spin the story his way. Publishing insiders say the book doesn't just raise questions about plural marriage, it tears the curtain down. Christine allegedly compares polygamy to a rigged game where only one player, the husband, ever holds the full deck. She writes about emotional loyalty being demanded, but rarely returned. About how choice was the buzzword they all clung to, even while quietly choking on the expectations that came with it. In one particularly gut-wrenching chapter, Christine reveals that when she finally walked away, she wasn't just leaving Kody. She was leaving a belief system that had made her feel small since she was a teenager. According to early readers, she calls polygamy a performance with rotating wives and one permanent lead, and even likens it to a romantic pyramid scheme. That line, reportedly buried in chapter 12, has publishers buzzing and TLC executives sweating. Because once the audience starts applying that metaphor to everything they've seen over 16 seasons, it's game over for the fairy tale of happy pluralism. And Kody, he didn't take that comparison lightly. Sources say when he heard about the pyramid scheme line, he lost it all over again. According to insiders, he claimed Christine had been brainwashed by monogamists and was turning her back on her spiritual legacy. But maybe the truth is simpler. Christine is finally seeing the system from the outside, and she's not sugarcoating it anymore. Privately, sources say she wrestled with going public. She worried about backlash from her former religious community, about being painted as bitter or disloyal. But in the end, the pain of silence outweighed the pressure to keep quiet. One friend recalled her saying, "If I'm going to say I found peace, I have to show people what I survived first." And now that survival story, it's being bound, printed, and mailed across the country. Meanwhile, Kody is still stuck in denial, clinging to the belief that this book is a betrayal, not a reckoning. On set, he reportedly told someone, "She's making me the villain in her little escape story." But here's the part he doesn't seem to understand. Christine never said he was the villain. She said the system was. And when that system was finally exposed for what it truly was, the man who had benefited from it the most couldn't stand the heat. And this fire? It's just getting started. If there's one chapter in Christine's memoir that's already rattling cages beyond the Brown household, it's the one revisiting the family's high-profile lawsuit against the state of Utah. The same lawsuit they once celebrated as a victory for plural families. But in hindsight, Christine allegedly sees it as a mistake, a costly one. For years, the Browns were positioned as advocates for decriminalizing polygamy. They took their case to federal court, arguing that their lifestyle was protected by religious freedom. But according to insiders familiar with the manuscript, Christine is now revealing what really happened behind the scenes, and it's far from flattering. In the book, she allegedly reflects on that legal battle with brutal honesty, stating that she was never fully on board, that she felt used. "We were used," she reportedly writes, "used by producers, used by lawyers, used by Kody." That sentence alone is already causing a stir among those who followed the case closely, and Christine doesn't stop there. She reportedly draws a connection between the lawsuit and the unintended rise of predators who exploited those same relaxed laws. Predators who cloaked themselves in religious language while committing atrocities. She doesn't name names, but the references are hard to miss. Groups like the FLDS, leaders like Samuel Bateman, men who used the legal cover of spiritual freedom to marry underage girls. "We were fighting for dignity," she allegedly writes, "but they used our fight to disappear into the shadows." And then comes the part no one saw coming. Christine reportedly confesses that she tried to distance herself from the lawsuit midway through, but was convinced to stay quiet for the sake of the show. If that's true, the implications could be massive, not just for the Browns, but for TLC itself, because it suggests that the lawsuit wasn't just about legal reform, it was also about ratings. And if that's the case, then Christine's book isn't just her truth, it's an expose. And the internet? It's already on fire. Reddit. Threads, TikToks, and Facebook groups are erupting with support. One commenter put it best: "She was silenced back then, but not anymore. But not anymore." Christine's voice is no longer scripted, no longer filtered. And with this memoir, she isn't just challenging Kody Brown, she's shattering the carefully crafted narrative that tried to contain her. Just when readers think they've mapped out her emotional journey, Christine reportedly takes a chilling turn, straight into her family's blood-soaked past. Sister Wives fans always knew Christine came from a prominent polygamous lineage, but few ever grasped the full weight of that legacy, or just how deeply her roots were tangled in the darkest chapters of fundamentalist Mormon history. And now, according to early readers, Christine isn't holding back. She's ready to name it, claim it, and trace the fear she grew up with. not just to theology, but to murder. The name Rulon Allred isn't one that gets brought up on Sister Wives. But in Christine's life, he wasn't just a distant historical figure. He was her grandfather, a prophet, a martyr, a man who led the Apostolic United Brethren, the very same polygamous sect the Browns once called home. In the 1970s, Rulon was gunned down in broad daylight, a hit ordered by rival prophet Ervil LeBaron, whose extremist splinter group believed Rulon was a false prophet who needed to be atoned for. Christine, just a small child at the time, allegedly grew up haunted by the aftermath. The ripple effects of that act didn't stop at her front door. They echoed through every hallway of her life. The memoir reportedly details hushed conversations, shifting eyes, and whispered warnings. Family members urging her not to speak, certain names aloud. Christine allegedly describes the panic in her mother's voice when the news broke, the immediate shift in the air as her once familiar community turned cold, guarded, and tightly controlled. Leaders grew harsher. Neighbors became suspicious. Fear became a form of obedience. Christine reportedly ties this atmosphere directly to her own childhood conditioning, the way she was taught that silence was safety, that survival meant compliance, and that questions were dangerous. But what she allegedly hints at next may be the most disturbing part of all: the unspoken shame. Christine reportedly writes that even her own family wanted to sanitize the past. They told her to remember Rulon as a spiritual visionary, not as a victim of a holy war. But Christine couldn't forget. She couldn't forget that her grandfather was killed in the name of the same ideology that later justified her own suffering. In one haunting line, she reportedly writes, "I was born from bloodshed, and for a long time I thought that made me sacred, but it only made me silent." According to insiders, that line is one of the most powerful moments in the entire manuscript. Because in that single sentence, Christine reframes her life, not as a woman simply escaping a bad marriage, but as someone breaking a generational curse. A system of secrecy, silence, and submission, finally collapsing. As this chapter leaks, online, fans are already deep diving into her family history. And once it's officially published, the headlines won't stop. Because it's not every day that a reality star pulls back the veil on cult history and places herself at the heart of it. But Christine's not hiding anymore. Not from Kody, not from the church, and definitely not from the truth. If Christine's childhood was shaped by shadows, her adulthood, especially her marriage, was marked by a quieter betrayal, a more personal heartbreak. And according to the memoir, that pain reached its peak during the birth of their daughter, Truly. While Christine was in labor, frightened and in agony, Kody, as alleged in the draft, was packing his bags for a honeymoon. The timeline is damning. Christine had just given birth. She was recovering, exhausted, nursing, bleeding. And Kody? According to insiders, he was preparing to leave town for 11 days with Robin, his new wife, his new life. Christine reportedly writes, "And we were no longer part of it." A gut punch, and one that echoes with thousands of women who've been left emotionally abandoned during the most vulnerable moments of their lives. Christine doesn't soften it. She reportedly details the fog of exhaustion, the sting of stitches, the silence in a room where love should have lived. Sources claim she includes dates, airline receipts, and even personal journal entries that track Kody's absence, and the ache that followed. "He didn't call," she allegedly writes, "not even to ask how Truly was doing." It wasn't just emotional neglect, it was a decision, a declaration in action of who mattered. And it wasn't the woman who had just brought his child into the world. The backlash to this chapter is expected to be brutal. Fans who long suspected Kody's favoritism toward Robin are now seeing their suspicions confirmed in painful detail. And if Christine really does include receipts, as insiders suggest, there may be no way to spin it. Reportedly, she stops, just short of condemning Kody outright, but her words leave no doubt. This wasn't a marriage, it was a man already gone, playing the part for cameras, but emotionally absent from the scene. Even TLC appears nervous. A production insider reportedly admitted that while Kody's honeymoon was common knowledge at the time, editors downplayed the overlap with Christine's recovery. The question now, was that done to protect the show's story arc, or to protect Kody? Either way, Christine's memoir reopens old wounds. It challenges what fans were shown, and more importantly, what they weren't. And there's more. Sources claim that during the editing of those early seasons, especially around Truly's birth and Kody's courtship with Robin, several critical scenes were flagged and quietly cut. We're not talking awkward glances. We're talking full sequences. According to one source, there was footage of Kody going in and out of Robin's house during Christine's labor. Footage producers chose not to air, fearing it made him look detached, even cruel. Instead, the episode focused on family excitement and skipped over the detour. That's not editing for time. That's editing for image. Christine's memoir may finally confirm what